to Parenting Kids with Complex Needs, a podcast for families navigating the unique challenges of raising children with medical, neurological, and developmental needs. I'm Carolyn, a mom who's been on this journey for over a decade raising my own amazing complex kid. I know firsthand how overwhelming it can be to juggle doctor's appointments, therapies, school accommodations, and everything else life throws your way, while still trying to take care of yourself. This podcast is your safe space to find guidance, resources, and encouragement. Whether your child has ADHD, sensory processing challenges, autism, or a medical diagnosis, you're in the right place. We'll dive into topics like advocating for your child's education, managing the financial stress of medical care, supporting their emotional well-being, and most importantly, taking care of you so that you can take care of them. I'll also bring on guest experts and share practical tools to make this journey a little easier. So grab your cup of coffee or reheat it for the third time, and let's navigate this together. You are not alone, and together we can make progress one step at a time. Let's get started. Hi friends, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about addressing sensory challenges at school. And if you haven't listened to the episode before, these do go together. So I would recommend going back and listening to the one that was talking about sensory processing challenges at home. So just a little bit of background again, if you haven't been listening from the beginning, I do have several decades of experience as an educator. I was in the classroom for over 20 years, and I have a master's in curriculum instruction and supervision, and I've also spent the last several years on and off teaching my son at home. So pretty much have experienced most of the instructional models of education during my teaching career. But in the last few years have been wearing both hats, both as a teacher and as a parent. What I'm going to try to attempt to do today is wear both hats, the hat of a parent and the hat of a teacher, and at times try to talk to both audiences. So we're going to see how this goes. So let's start talking to parents, okay? And then I want to talk to my teacher friends too. And I want to say going into this that I'm attempting to collaborate with all of us and partner with all of us in this solution. So I'm trying to wear both hats on purpose. In recent months, recent years, I've been in a lot of parent groups online, talked to parents in person, and been a parent who's been struggling a lot with my son's education. And I've heard a lot of challenges from parents about their kids' experiences in school. So I want to validate that and say that I understand as a parent, because I know that from the research, even if your child has a neurodiversity, being complex, and has sensory processing issues and perhaps more specific diagnoses, if you've gone through the process in school of having an evaluation done, and let's say your child now has either a 504 or an IEP, and I'll get into those more in other episodes, but if you're at the point where your child is receiving those types of services, that you've gone through the process and you know there is an issue, the research says that about 48% of parents are still dissatisfied with the amount of support that their children are getting in school. And I'm going to try to just keep this to the topic of sensory processing disorder without going too far into that. But I want to acknowledge that at first and say that I understand that you're feeling dissatisfied. I understand that you're frustrated. I understand that every day that your child goes to school, you're not exactly sure what's going to happen if they have a sensory issue, right? So I acknowledge that. And I've experienced it with my son as well. It's been very challenging. And I will have other episodes where we'll go more into our story and our experience with that. But first of all, before I go into the next piece, I wanted to make sure that I let you know that I understand that and I've experienced it as well. So now I'm going to put on my teacher hat and talk to you and give you some, we could call it inside information, just about my experience as a teacher with this issue of supporting kids with special needs, okay? So my training goes back, like I said, several decades. So when I was starting teaching, the way that general education and special education were different, general education meaning that I was a classroom teacher without special education certification, okay? I was just going to be in the regular classroom. The way that they were different was the training. You did not receive any special education training as a general education teacher when I was getting my certification. So that was, if we're going back a few decades, that's the way that it was in the 90s. Just to give you a little bit of background of that. And now, through my career and experience, that changed in terms of the classroom. So in the classroom, what was happening with our kids kept changing in terms of the least restricted environment. And if you're not familiar with that term, we want to give our kids the least restricted environment in order for them to succeed. So interrupt them from their education process the least amount possible. So obviously, the least amount possible would just allow them to be in the general education classroom all the time. And then over time, that's changed for them being maybe just in one pull-out class for maybe one subject, or maybe more than one subject would be the next level. Having to be out of the classroom for most subjects would be more restricted, right? Or maybe we look at solutions with aides coming into the classroom. So those are all different types of accommodations that might happen with your child, okay? So keep in mind, if you have an IEP, what that looks like right now as I'm talking, and see how this relates to you, okay? So what happened for me, and I've been out of the classroom for 5 years as of this taping, was briefly in there for a short amount of time, but majority of my teaching was prior to 5 years ago. So what has happened is, as time has gone on, we've wanted our children, our students, to be in the classroom as much as possible. But, and this is my experience personally as an educator, spending the majority of my career in a very good school district, is that there wasn't the training for the teachers in the general education classroom that was needed to service those children with IEPs that were in our classroom. So, and, I don't know if we're going into a controversial subject or not, but I have had conversations with teachers who've confirmed this was their experience as well. But I want to give some perspective. And then, I would love to hear feedback from parents and teachers alike. But my desire in this platform is to create productive and intentional conversation. It's not to criticize either side of this, because I have a pretty good understanding of what's happening on both ends, okay? So this is not meant to be critical. I know that in my experience of over 25 years, I had limited training in how to support my special education students. And then when I went for my master's, I suddenly received some more education in that program, which I thought was interesting. The ways that I would find out how to support them the best were usually on the fly, meaning that I had wonderful professionals in my building. I might run to the counselor or the OT or the physical therapist to get some insights from them. Often, though, what the process was is if you were having a challenge, you would schedule a meeting to get some strategies from those other professionals. But what I often started to wonder is, you gather your tools and your skills along the way for how to support your students. But if you've never had that training, you don't know what you don't know, because I can say now as a parent that there were a lot of things that I didn't know that I could tap into. And one of my closest friends was a special education teacher, so she would give me a lot of ideas, and that was great, but I didn't naturally know how to pull from those resources because I hadn't had that training. So I say that because I know that it varies district to district, school to school, the amount of training. But it is an issue. I know that it is an issue. And I'm also not saying that just because you get a training that solves the problem, because if you are a general education teacher who has multiple children in your classroom with multiple needs, and I think all of us know that post-pandemic staffing is down. So you're potentially doing that on your own. You have a teacher who's overextended, who probably doesn't have any aids unless it's been indicated in the IEP, and is trying to service your child the best they know how with everything else that is on their plate. Now, I'm going to put my parent hat back on, because I understand how frustrating that is for you as a parent when you know that your child needs support and isn't going to be able to get it. So as I've been when I say not able to get it, because one person can only be extended so much to try to support so many children in a variety of different ways, okay? I just wanted to lay that groundwork to say that as a parent, knowing what your child needs, requesting it, and then depending on your personal situation, you're going into all these IEP meetings, asking for revisions, et cetera, et cetera. Here's where I see the breakdown happening as a professional, as a teacher, as a parent, okay? I see the breakdown happening in the meetings where we're either hearing from the team that they won't be able to provide your child with an accommodation that they need, or they're promising an accommodation without really understanding the teacher's ability to be able to deliver that. So what I'm saying is, right, the problem is not at the teacher level. It might not even be at the administration level. It could be a district issue. But be aware of that because so many people that are dissatisfied with their child's IEP are being told that their child can't be serviced with something. And my opinion, parental and professional opinion, is I think that the two main things that are happening right now, if you're hearing a no about a service, that it's because of staffing issues. And then if they are receiving services and you're not satisfied, it's very, very possible that the teacher is overcommitted, has been overcommitted without even having a say about it, in order to accommodate those things. And it's just not a realistic thing for them to be able to do. Okay. I just think it's important that we have an understanding of all those things. And the result is everybody's stressed out. You have conversations where, one side or the other or both are very heated or heightened. But I think a lot of it is just because we don't have a true understanding of each other's perspective. If you're a teacher and you've never had a special needs child of your own, there's a perspective that you don't understand. I can say that because I didn't until I had one. I think, and I'll be honest, I was impatient a lot of times in the classroom with some of my students that needed more help from me because I was just overextended or didn't have the training to know how to help them. If you're a parent and have never been a teacher, then, we have to be honest, we don't have a clear understanding of everything that they're trying to juggle, because most teachers and all the ones that I've met, most teachers really want to help your children. And I know you're frustrated, but I want you to hear me say that they're doing, in most cases, the very best they can, but they can't at this point. It's just gotten harder and harder, especially over the last 5 years. They just can't keep doing more without something being taken off of their plate. Okay? So this is a passionate subject for me, and I'm watching my time so that I stay within this limit that I promised you. But now I want to just switch gears again, and as a parent, allow you to listen to what I want to say to my teacher friends, okay? So teacher friends, do you feel like you've had enough training, if you're in the general education classroom, to support your kids with IEPs who have special needs? Sometimes they're not even identified, right? And you're trying to figure out if they have needs. What I'm hearing a lot lately is behavioral related things that can just, in your day, feel just disruptive, but could be because of other things, right? I want you to hear me say that I understand that one training isn't enough to solve your problem. Because if you're being overextended, that's a whole different issue. But do you feel like there are some things that would be helpful for you to learn? Like, would it be helpful to know some sensory techniques that you could help your students with? Because I know that I would have loved to know those things. So what I'm going to ask my teacher friends to do that are listening, and if you're a parent who has a teacher friend, please let them know that in the show notes, there's a survey I would love your feedback from, because I want to be informed as I offer this information. And I also want to be able to create things for you if they're helpful. Because what I was saying last week to parents is they need something quick that they can refer to. A day out of your classroom to get training isn't really what's going to be helpful. It's just going to put you behind more, right? But if you could refer to a quick guide that gives you a quick, description of some of the things that are going on, some practical things that you can do to solve those problems, would that be helpful? Or some resources that you could get for your classroom, that would be helpful. I would love to help you with that. So in the show notes, there is a link to a survey that I would love for you to complete. It's CarolynGardnerConsulting.com/teacher survey. And it's just an opportunity for you to share what would be helpful in your classroom. Just a quick reference guide is all that I'm talking about. And, if it's sensory processing disorder or other ways that you'd like to support your neurodiverse students, let me know that as well. I hope that this has been helpful. I did my best to try to represent both audiences, parents and teachers, because I do want us to be partners. And I want to encourage parents to try to think about the teacher's perspective. I want to encourage teachers to think about parent perspective so that we can collaborate and really support our kids together. Okay. I would love for you to share your thoughts on this episode and let me know if it's helpful. Please give me your feedback. I would also love it if you would fill out a review and share this podcast with others so that, especially with the review, it makes it easier for us to be found by other people. So I hope that, again, I'm trying to keep to our time. I ran a little over today, but I hope it was a helpful episode for you. And I encourage you, parents and teachers, to know that you are doing a great job. I see you, and we're going to support our kids together. Have a great day.